What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and I'm going to give you my top 10 players for the LSU Tigers for this upcoming 2021 college football season. It's a team that has a lot of talent, as always, but we try to narrow it down to the 10 players that will have the biggest impact for LSU. And it was a couple of years ago when I did this video when it kind of opened my eyes to the talent that LSU had that year. And if you remember, I think I said it in that specific video. I said this team is a top 4 team. Now, I didn't pick them to go to the playoff. I'm not trying to take credit for that just because of their schedule. But I said talent-wise, I think this is a top 4 team, and they were loaded. So you look at the top 10 players for 2021. I don't know that it's 2019 good, but there's still a lot of talent there, especially at the top. Their top 4 or 5 players really, really good. So let's get into it here. And again, these are the players that I think will have the biggest impact this season. Starting with number 10, that's Damone Clark at linebacker. Last season had 63 tackles, 4 tackles for loss. Also broke up 1 pass as well. You look at the linebacker unit, and they're not real strong. I don't think that's a strength of this team, and they're maybe kind of moving to that 4-2-5 defense. But I think he's a big leader on this defense. Going to be a big leader for them this year. He led the team in tackles last season, and not really getting a lot of hype coming into this year. You don't really hear about him much. I haven't really seen him on any of the preseason All-SEC lists, but I think he's going to be a really solid player for them this year. And be maybe one of the better linebackers in the SEC this season. So I've got Damone Clark at number 10. At number 9, we go to John Emery Jr. at running back. 378 yards last season, 5 yards per carry, 3 touchdowns. And yes, I have him on this list instead of Davis Price, who I think it seems like a lot of LSU fans expect Davis Price to be the guy. He's kind of the projected starter, but I just like the home run ability of John Emery Jr. I've just been waiting on it, You go back to even his high school highlights, you just see the talent. He has a lot of speed, a lot of explosiveness, and I think he's going to make some big plays for this LSU team in the run game. He did not lead the team in rushing last season. Davis Price did at 446 yards, but he did lead them in, or he had an advantage in the yards per carry, 5 yards per carry compared to 4.3, and their number of carries were not really that much different. So again, will he see the most carries this year? I don't know, but I think that because of that home run threat, that explosiveness, he's the guy that's going to have a big impact, maybe make some big runs for LSU this season. Number 8 is B.J. Ojulari, 16 tackles last season, 5 tackles for loss, 4 of those were sacks, had a forced fumble recovery as well. And I think, as a freshman last year, really just emerged as a guy that has a chance to be a superstar at defensive end. When you look at him and Ali Gay, who we'll get to in just a minute, that is a really good combo there at defensive end. Not to dismiss Andre Anthony as well, a guy that I think will also help them out there. And just overall defensive line, the depth is so strong for LSU. They're going to have a really, really good defensive line. I think it'll be a top 5 defensive line in all of college football, and maybe could cover up some of the other areas, maybe at linebacker where they're a little bit weaker. At cornerback, obviously, they're loaded. We'll talk about corners in just a minute as well. But B.J. Ojulari is a true freshman coming in there, making an impact. I think he makes an even bigger impact this year, and I think he's going to be an all-SEC type player. Number 7 is Ed Ingram. He has 15 career starts. He's a preseason all-SEC player on the offensive line. I think he's their best offensive lineman. He's a senior, a veteran guy. There's not really a ton to talk about when we're talking about the offensive linemen. But this is a group that has a lot of starts coming back, an experienced unit. Are they the most talented unit? I don't know, but I think that experience is going to bode well for them. Ed Ingram, though, leads the way on that offensive line. He's their best offensive lineman. He's that leader up front, and he's going to have a big impact for LSU this season. Number 6, we go to the kicker position. We don't have the kickers on here a ton, but Cade York absolutely deserves to be on this list. 18 of 21 on his field goals last year. 6 of 7 on 50-plus yard field goals. That is impressive. So not only do you have a guy that rarely misses, you have a guy that you can run out there and kick 50-plus yard field goals with. That is a weapon, and we saw it against Florida. I mean, it had a big impact on them last year. I think he's going to have a big impact this year. He was all SEC in 2020, depending on which all SEC list you look at. He was first or second team. But yeah, he's going to make a big impact. Could win a football game for them again this year. we'll see. Number 5 is Myles Brennan at quarterback. Last year, he threw for over 1,000 yards, over 1,100 yards in just 3 games. He had 11 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, a 60% completion percentage. He was putting up numbers similar to Joe Burrow through his first 3 games in 2019. Then he went down with the injury, of course. That changed everything for LSU. Max Johnson stepped up towards the end of the year and played well. There are some that think maybe he can challenge Brennan for that starting job, but I think Myles Brennan will be the starter, and I think he's going to have a great year. Now, is he going to be Joe Burrow good? Probably not, but I think he has a chance to be, a top 5 quarterback in the SEC, and obviously he's going to have a big impact for LSU because he's the quarterback, assuming he starts. And so, yeah, he's got to be on this list. Number 5, Myles Brennan. And again, you saw that offense when he was in there early in the year. The offense wasn't the problem. They were scoring points. They were moving the football. It was the defense that was the problem. But Myles Brennan, I think, if he can stay healthy this year and be the starter for them, he's going to have a big, big year, especially statistically. Number 4 is Ali Gaye. So we go back to the defensive line. Talked about Ojulari earlier. Ali Gaye last season had 32 tackles, 9.5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks. This was interesting. He broke up 6 passes on the defensive line, 6 passes defended. You don't really see that too often. Shows his ability to get up and knock them down. Had a forced fumble, a fumble recovery as well. And just going back to what I said with B.J. Ojulari, Ali Gaye, throw Andre Anthony in there as well. This is a really good unit at defensive end. Even the middle, defensive line up front, pretty strong as well, with Glenn Logan, Neil Farrell, Mason Smith, the freshman, who could have a big impact for them. It's a deep, talented group on the defensive line. I think Ali Gaye is the best on that defensive line, and I expect him to have a big, big year. More than 2 sacks this year. Go ahead and write that down. Watch out for Ali Gaye to have maybe closer to 10 sacks. I think he has that type of ability. Number 3 is Kayshon Boutte at wide receiver. Last season as a true freshman, 45 catches, 735 yards, also 5 touchdowns. He's got the whole package. Great hands, great explosiveness, speed, route running, everything there. It's all there for him, and he has a chance to be the next great one at LSU, in my opinion. I love his big playability. We saw that last year. That was a big, big thing for him. Averaged 16.3 yards per catch. And he's really going to be their go-to guy at wide receiver. You've got Jere Jenkins in there at wide receiver, a guy that I think could have maybe even made it onto this list. I think he's going to have a big impact for them. And some other guys like Trey Palmer, Coy Moore, Kirkland. I mean, they've got some talented receivers, some very talented wide receivers. But Kayshon Boutte is clearly the best, and he is going to be their big home run threat this year. I think he is going to have a big, big impact for LSU. Number 2 is Eli Ricks. Last season as a true freshman, 20 tackles, 4 interceptions, broke up 5 passes, also had 2 touchdowns. He was, I believe I saw on one of the services, he was a 4th-team All-American last season, I think, as a true freshman. Really, statistically, probably had a better year than Derek Stingley. He, again, made a big impact, and that's as a true freshman. What is he going to do for an encore performance as a sophomore? We'll have to wait and see, but I expect him to have another big year. Eli Ricks is going to be really big. And, I mean, how often have you ever seen a team where you're looking at their top players and their top 2 players are the same position? They're both cornerbacks. Number 1, it's Derek Stingley Jr. Last season, all right, it was kind of a rough year for him statistically. He had some injuries, missed that first game, missed some games in there. So he was never totally 100%, I don't think. And you saw the numbers weren't anywhere near what they were in 2019. Plus, I mean, you also got to look at the fact that they weren't really throwing at him. These quarterbacks learned their lesson in 2019. So just 27 tackles, 5 passes defended last season. But if you go back to 2019, he had 6 interceptions, 15 passes defended. Yeah, that's big time as a true freshman. Just kind of showing you, those numbers for Eli Ricks were phenomenal for a true freshman. But look at Stingley's numbers as a true freshman. I think he's clearly the best player on this team. You can make an argument that he's the best player in college football. I think he is that good, and I think he's going to have a breakout year. Or I wouldn't say he's already had a breakout year. He's going to be just once again a guy that you just can't throw the football at. I think he's the best cornerback by far in college. He's the best cornerback in college football, and like I said, maybe the best player in college football. Plus, you get what you get from his special teams, punt returning. He's can make an impact there as well. Just a huge huge impact player for LSU. I think he's clearly their best player. But this is definitely a list that is debatable. I'd love to get your thoughts on this. I don't think you can really debate Stingley at number 1, but how about the other guys? Who would you move up? Who would you move down? Who'd I leave off that you think should have been on this list? Or maybe I put a guy on here that you don't think should be on this list. Give me your thoughts down in the comments below, and thank you for watching this video.